Welcome to our second Life on Tap of the 2016 spring semester. Really excited to have three great speakers this evening talking about government on the civilian side, and they'll probably touch upon some of their experience when they were also in the military. But our first speaker today is an English major who is here with one of our fellow alumni, Alyssa Lombardi, here at Christendom. He was a Marine, served 3 tours, and he's currently working in IT for the EPA. So if you could put your hands together for Mr. Joe McFadden.
Good evening. I just want to start, I guess there was a typo. I only served 1 tour in Iraq, so set that straight. But so EPA, I know what comes to mind. If you read the news, you're probably like Flint, water up in Michigan, our little disaster out there at the Colorado mine. I actually do work for the Office of Water, so those are both under our office. So there were 2 screw-ups or whatever. But the EPA, I ended up there kind of by a roundabout way. I started, I was in the Marine Corps, and I got out and went to work for an association doing that as a nonprofit. And then I transitioned over to work for the Army in the DoD. So I worked for the Army for 2 years, and then I went to an organization called DISA, which is Defense Information Systems Agency at the Pentagon, working for the Joint Staff Support Center. And that was a very interesting job, but I was right where I really met some really great Catholics in the middle of the federal government. It was really a strange experience. My boss was a practicing Catholic, and one of my coworkers was an active duty Air Force officer, and her roommate in Alexandria was actually a recent Christendom grad. So it was kind of a weird, small connection. There was 6 of us working in this little tiny, it's called a SCIF, secure room in the basement of the Pentagon. Kind of a weird place to run into somebody who was like, oh, went to Christendom. I mentioned your name to my roommate who knows your brother Tom, and it was like this whole weird connection. I had a job opportunity at EPA. I just applied because it was a promotional potential to get a promotion, and I never really thought I would take it. I actually canceled the interview, thinking I wouldn't go. And I had a long chat with my boss, and he said, you know what, it would actually be really good. Get out there, see what you can do. You've been in the DoD since you were 19. Get out and see something different. And I've been there 4.5 years, and I could have sworn I would never stay there longer than 10 months, longer than a year. But what I found was a little pocket of conservatives every day trying to find ways to cut costs, to save taxpayer dollars, to be accountable, to hold other people accountable. My first year there, I don't have an accounting degree, I have an English degree. I do IT now, just kind of transitioned into that. And I don't have an accounting degree. I took a couple accounting classes at Northern Virginia Community College, and I was able to find $150,000 worth of waste that nobody was looking at. Just by being able to read, just by being able to look at stuff, and by being conservative and caring about that, and caring about where our dollars go. And it's been really rewarding working there for 4.5 years, knowing that I can actually impact something that's happening. I can look at the political situation, I can look at the policy the EPA has, but inside the federal government is where the real work happens. And something important to note, I think, is I wouldn't be in the financial position I am now, which is I'm doing pretty well for myself, if I didn't start out in the federal government, work my way up. It's actually fairly easy to move up if you're motivated, if you can think, you can read. That's really a big one. It's just really great seeing every day that there's an impact, whereas I could get into politics or I could try to influence something that way. Being there, doing the work, working with other like-minded individuals, and we find each other. We find other people, and we're like, oh, you're conservative too? Okay, cool. And we kind of form these coalitions, and just by using reason and logic to talk to some of our less reasonable, less logic people, the people who are writing the policies a lot of the time, these giant, the EPA, what they're famous for, policies, they don't really look at the minutia of it. And when this is really my pitch tonight, and I've been talking to my brother Tom for 1.5 years now, and I've been telling him, look, let me come talk to Christendom, because we need conservatives in government. Not only is it a good job, is it secure, it's got health benefits, you've got all these great benefits, but you also are actually impacting things that happen in an agency like that. Saving money with tax dollars, saving, you can do a lot. And with a Christendom education, being able to think through problems, being able to kind of find different avenues or think outside the box, you're dealing with, a lot of my interns are all coming from very liberal schools. They're all highly motivated. They're all very smart, but they're all liberal. They all are. And they have this logic mindset that when I talk to them, I have to explain to them that shutting down coal means your electricity, where does your electricity come? It comes from coal, but yet the EPA is trying to like get rid of coal. It's insane. And so I try one intern at a time, try to convert them to conservatism, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The other thing about the federal government is you don't have to really stay in one field. You can diversify, you can change programs. There's a lot of opportunities to move around. So if you get into an area where you're not really progressing in a career, you can transition towards a different direction. My wife also works for the federal government. She works for the U.S. Marshal Service. So we have influence in a lot of ways, and we try to exercise it as best we can. So that's my pitch. Please apply. If you want to reach out to me through my brother, to LinkedIn, there's different websites. I know Alyssa's got some information about how to apply, so I'll let her cover that. We're doing individual questions, right? Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions about what the EPA actually does or what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, okay. Does anyone have any questions? I mean, I work for the Office of Water. The EPA does a lot of things. Personally, I do IT, but I write policy. I've written government-wide policy for IT systems. My degree's in English, but I transitioned into doing web design, graphic design. I can really just do anything if you say, so will somebody do this? You can go, yeah, I'll do it. And then you take on another responsibility and you get an award or you get a medal or you get something like that. You get some cash. Yes?
Well, my question is about that transition from English to everything.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of stuck in the mindset that you have to like prepare for, like take classes in like accounting or take classes in whatever to do that. How true is that, or like does it really just blur when you're actually working?
I learned all my IT on the job. They gave me training when I was at DISA. They sent me like $10,000 worth of training. I became a certified ethical hacker. I mean, just weird stuff like that. I said, I want to do that. They went, yeah, we can justify that. And so I went to a 2-week-long class and learned how to hack. And I came back from that with a certificate that got mailed to me from Singapore or something. It was really weird. But there's a lot of things you can, like, they sent me to all these security classes because they were trying to drive me towards security. And that was one of the reasons why I left. I went back to, I do marketing, communications, I do IT. It's really anything that somebody else doesn't want to do. Alyssa will tell you, if someone else doesn't want to do it, they're more than happy to let you do it for them. And then you put that on your resume, and you just learn it as you go, and you next thing. Yes?
What do your interns do? What's their job?
So my latest intern, he's not my intern, but he sits next to me in a cubicle. He does modeling, scientific modeling for a system called HAWKS, which is something to do with waterways. This is my third federal agency, and I always tell my employers, I said, I'm not going to learn the business of the agency because I don't need to. I need to know how to help you get outside that box or think outside of how you're doing things. And I think federally, I think taxpayer, like I kind of get in we're the consumer of this product of government, as much as it sometimes is not good or doesn't do a very good job. If you can get in there and then influence that and give back good customer service, so our interns come in, they do all kinds of stuff, but the person who was supposed to be his mentor retired. This is another problem. People retire with all this years of information. And so now he's actually kind of working with me. I'm helping him learn how to do this thing called SharePoint, which is a content management IT system. It's very easy. English degrees work well with content management systems. Anyone else? All right. Go ahead.
Just one quick thing.
Yeah.
So I'm a freshman. Over the next few years, is there something you would recommend for one of those freshmen to do, like to either people to talk to or like groups to look at or something along those lines if you want to get into it? Would you recommend like doing the military first, or is there easier side?
I will say getting into the federal government service as a veteran makes it much easier. I am only a 5-point veteran. I just recently hired on 30-point disabled veteran. Getting them in is like so quick, but knowing people, staying in contact, keeping that connection, knowing somebody and knowing how, I don't know if they're going to cover, but applying for jobs with the federal government is like fishing. You have to like cast your line. If you don't cast it, I cast I think maybe 15 my first time, and I actually got 2 for the same agency. One was for Army Publishing Directorate, and one was for the place where I ended up working, which was called the Resource Operations Center for the Army. And they were 2, one, she told me, I'll pay you more, come work for me. And I was like, sweet, I'm coming to work for you. And it ended up being a really good career choice. I doubled my salary in 1 year, going from a nonprofit, 10 months to a nonprofit, to the government. Literally doubled my salary, it was amazing. So, I mean, there's a lot of things, that's something, thinking about going out, think about internship, think about nonprofits first. Once you do that, nonprofits are great. I worked at a 37-person nonprofit, and they just let me do anything I wanted to. I didn't have the staff. And so I built my resume very quickly out of college, and then I was able to transition that in. They need diversified kind of, and the liberal arts degrees are more and more for IT, help desks, things like that. Customer service is a very important thing, and a lot of folks who've been working in the federal government a long time have forgotten what customer service even means. It's really true. Lady who just retired, she's been working at the EPA longer than I've been alive. And when she retired, it was like this giant vacuum. All this stuff that she worked on, a lot of it came to me, came to other people. I was just like, I'll take it over. And she'd been doing things this really weird way for so many years. It worked, but it didn't work for anyone else. And so that was like 3 months of trying to figure out what was she doing. So I don't want to take everyone else's time. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Joe. And if any of you have questions, he'll be around afterwards, so feel free to jump up and talk to him after the talks are over. Our next speaker, all right, is Alyssa Lombardi. She is a 2003 history major, and along with being a really good softball coach, she might touch on that, she's a program analyst with the U.S. Coast Guard with their National Pollution Fund Center. So she'll also be touching on how to get hired within the national government and how that works. You may have heard Joe mention the point system, so hopefully you'll be able to clear some of that up as well. So without further ado, Alyssa Lombardi.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Lombardi. I graduated in 2003 from Christendom, and it's kind of funny, like, I feel like our path to where we are now is very similar, and when you start working in the federal government, you kind of find that everybody's been everywhere, and they're not necessarily, everybody has a story about how they started. And I actually taught at St. Louis School in Alexandria for 6 years after Christendom, so I was a history major. I got hired on to teach at a Catholic grade school, and I loved it. I loved teaching in the Catholic school system, especially because the Diocese of Arlington is a very strong diocese to teach in. There's a lot of opportunity for me to grow as a teacher. There's a lot of money at our school to help us take our continuing education classes, because at the time when I was at Christendom, I didn't intend to be a teacher, so I didn't take opportunities that were here to get some of my teaching credits. So when I got hired on at St. Louis, I was able to get my teaching license with the state through the school. But things changed. It wasn't that my school was bad, it wasn't that the kids were bad, it was just me. I just needed something different. And 2 years before I quit teaching, because every summer when we would have our break, I would nanny, which is not uncommon for people to do, especially when you're a Catholic school teacher. You need extra money. And one summer, I decided that I wanted something that would look good on my resume that might help me in the future. So I said, maybe I'll get a job with the government. But I had no idea about anything with the government. At the time, before USA Jobs was the only website that you could apply through for federal government or federal jobs, every agency or a lot of agencies had their own system. And so I just applied, and it's kind of funny. I didn't know how to apply, and it was just pure luck, a lot of prayers that I got my job, because I got hired on as a summer intern, which I made a whole packet. You don't have to pass it on now, but I think the number one way for you guys to, I guess, get an idea of if you want to even work for the federal government, or maybe the best path to get in would be to do a pathways internship during the summer, and that's what I did. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just knew that they were hiring for the summer. I got paid really well, and it looked good on my resume. So I applied, and I worked for the United States Coast Guard, and the National Pollution Fund Center basically is set up to clean up oil spills in waterways. So where he might work with, some of the contamination up in Flint, that wouldn't be something that my agency, but if that was oil in the water, even if the EPA is cleaning it up, they'd come through us. So I applied for this job, one of probably 50, and my boss at the time wanted somebody, it was just an admin assistant job for the summer, but he wanted somebody who could do research for him. He didn't need a secretary. So he was very proactive. I love my supervisor. He asked for every resume of anybody who applied. He wanted the entire list, which is pretty big for the government, because not all supervisors take that time or have that time or want that time. So they usually only get a list of maybe 3 or 5 or 10 or 15 people out of maybe a couple thousand who apply or more for each job. So he said I wasn't even that high on the list, but he saw I was a teacher, which by the way, I got my teaching job because the priest at St. Louis at the time had been at Christendom when I was here. So kind of got my federal job with my Christendom degree, but just took a different path. And I was willing to do research instead of sending out emails and letters. And he took a chance on me, and I took a chance, instead of saying it's above my pay grade or anything like that. But because of that internship, 2 years later, when I was just kind of done with teaching and I needed a change, I was able to call my boss, and they happened to have openings in my agency. Not everyone, the pure luck, a lot of prayer that got that. Not everyone has that, that easy way to transition into the government, especially since I'm not a veteran. When he was talking about, and you'll see in the pamphlet that I made, when they talk about 5, 10, 30-point veterans, when you apply for the government, your resume gets graded, and there's a questionnaire. So the higher you score, the higher you are on that list. But if you're a veteran and you have a 5-point, that means that you get 5 points added to whatever your score is. And let's say you get 100%, well, 105% is going to be a lot, or 105 points is higher than my 100, right? So I'm very blessed that I got my job for something that I'm not even trained in. I do marine science, and I do oil spill cleanup, and I do accounting to a certain degree, but I taught middle school history before that. And before that, I wasn't even trained in teaching. I just had a history major. So I love working for the government. Joe had some great points, and there are some great people. Like the Coast Guard is great because it's an armed force. So you also have families who've been stationed different places together. So it's a little bit even more close-knit than maybe some other agencies. I'm part of the Coast Guard Catholic community. We have Mass on holy days at the Coast Guard headquarters, so it was kind of nice. It brings me back to when I taught, when I didn't even have to worry about that stuff. Like we went to Mass on holy days. So just some things that I will touch base on, that because he covered a lot of things that I would have said too. That there are some great resources. Yes, you have to go to the federal website, or the federal jobs website, which is USA Jobs. And, there's there's thousands of jobs in so many different fields that I didn't even know. Once I was even working at the Coast Guard and I still didn't really know all that the federal government did. So I would encourage you guys, if this is what you want to do, take the chance now, or take the opportunity now, and just go on the website and see what's even available. Like I said, they even have on the front page of USA Jobs, if you're a student or if you're a recent graduate, they have a whole website that has resources for that, but also it kind of filters only student jobs out. Get a summertime job, because even though you technically don't have status, you still have federal experience. And if that's not the route that you can take, or if you try and you don't get it, when I was just looking to see what jobs might be available to a recent college grad, like the pay grade, a lot of the job descriptions are, needs to know Microsoft Office, correspondence, email, like things that every kid your age knows how to do. So Christendom makes you read, write, and speak well. But until your resume gets to the hand of that supervisor, you kind of have to learn the secret system of getting your resume through to that. So if you want to go into contracting, but you're a history major, or if you want to do what Joe does, but you're a philosophy major, take classes outside of your major, or if Christendom doesn't offer it, take a Microsoft Office class online through the community college. It's $300, but if you're certified in Office, it's a lot better than somebody who just knows it, right? Also, like he said, experience doesn't have to be paid. Front Royal has so many nonprofit, Catholic organizations that if you just gave a Tuesday and a Thursday to do their payroll, to send out their letters, to even do some travel arrangements, then you have unpaid experience. And so suddenly when you're applying for that admin job or that analyst job or something, even though your degree is different than maybe even what you found interest in for Christendom, you have an edge. So I don't want to do too much, because I kind of went through and applied for a job and put some notes next to things, because it is a foreign language. Until you learn it, it's overwhelming, and you can apply for jobs that you're totally qualified for, but not even know that you're not applying correctly. It's kind of weird, but at the same time, there's probably, I know how many jobs I applied for, so if everybody applying for each job applied for as many jobs, I can imagine it's overwhelming. I think I put in there too, like, your resumes, federal resumes are ugly. They're not like, when you have a resume and you have an interview in person, you give your pretty resume, but if you're not pinging words that are in the questionnaire in your resume, then it's not going to give you as many points. Don't have any typos. Make sure you get everything that they asked for in your resume, because sometimes I got disqualified once because I didn't put my typing speed. They didn't even look at it. So, just little things like that. And I guess you can look through it, and if you have any questions, I put my information in there. But if you have any general questions that Joe or I could answer about federal jobs or even the Coast Guard, I guess let me know.